Good morning, guys. Welcome to Zandu this morning. I think today will be my last is right word message on this focus on discouragement, dealing with discouragement. Today I want to draw from a story I learned a number of years ago. This story was from a book called Good to Great, written by a guy called Jim Collins. It's one of the books that for me, really, let me use the word life-changing. He has some principles in that book that when I look at those principles and I look at the Bible, I look at the Word of God, I see a lot of overlaps. Like, for example, he talks about level 5 leadership. And level 5 leadership, in his mind is, a certain quality of leader that is able to bring a company, take a company from a place of goodness and take it into a place called greatness. And the more I listen to level 5 leadership, the more I discover that level 5 leadership aligns with what the Bible calls or talks about servant leadership. Similar, very similar values, very similar thinking process. But one of the things he also talks about is how to navigate difficult times, and the book, the story of the book, Good to Great, is a story about companies that were initially good, but at some point shifted from being good to being great. And for him, Jim Collins defined greatness as not greatness in one generation, but greatness over generations, greatness over a period of time. And he said that every company that had moved to greatness had to face adversity and had to overcome adversity. If you are going to live a great life, if you're going to live a fantastic life, then you will have to face adversity. In fact, sometimes I feel that the people who are called to greatness have faced even more adversity than those who are not called to greatness. By virtue of the path that they've chosen, a path of greatness, they've also chosen a path of adversity. But one of the things he also says, the principle, the way to deal with times of great adversity, it calls it the Stockdale paradox. And that's the story I want to give. I want to read for the rest maybe of this session. I believe that there's a biblical perspective to this, and maybe at the end I'll be able to tie that down. But the Stockdale paradox refers to Admiral Jim Stockdale, who was the highest ranking U.S. military officer in the Hanoi Hilton, a prisoner of war camp during the height of the Vietnam War. Stockdale was tortured over 20 times during his 8-year imprisonment from 1965 to 1973. Stockdale lived out the war without any prisoner's rights, no set release date, no certainty as to whether he would even survive or see his family again. He says, one of my students had written his paper on Stockdale, who happened to be a senior research fellow studying the Stoic philosophers at the Hoover Institute right across the street from my office. And Stockdale invited the two of us for lunch. So he goes for lunch with Admiral Stockdale, and they are going through this book. He says, as I moved through the book, and this is the book that he and his wife had written, he says, I found myself getting depressed. It just seemed so bleak, the uncertainty of his fate, the brutality of his captors, and so forth. And then it dawned on me, here I am sitting in my warm and comfortable office, looking out over the beautiful Standard campus on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I'm getting depressed reading all this, and I know the end of the story. I know that he gets out. I know that he reunites with his family. I know that he becomes a national hero, and I know that he gets to spend the later years of his life studying philosophy on this same beautiful campus. It feels distressing to me. How on earth did he deal with it when he was actually there and did not know the end of the story? So this Stockdale is caught, is thrown into jail as a prisoner of war. He has no idea about the outcome of the story. And Jim Collins is reading through the book, and Jim Collins is telling himself, I'm so depressed, just reading this book. How was it? And I know the end of the story. I know that eventually he comes through. How was it that for Admiral Stockdale, who was there in the middle of the situation and did not know how it would come out? So he asks him, how did you know? How did you manage? How do you navigate that difficult season? And remember, again, that difficult season for him was about 8 years, where he was being held in a prisoner of war camp. He says, I never lost faith in the end of the story, he said when I asked him. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life, which in retrospect I would not trade. I didn't say anything for many minutes, and we continued a slow walk toward the faculty club. Stockdale limping and swinging his stiff leg that had never fully recovered from repeated torture. Finally, after about 100 meters of silence, I asked, who made it out? Who did not make it out? He said, that was easy. the optimists. You know, sometimes we think that it is usually those who have a positive outlook. And I'm not negating the whole aspect of a positive outlook. It's important to have a positive outlook on life. It's important to be optimistic. But Stockdale says the ones who didn't make it out were the optimists. And obviously, Jim Collins says, the optimists, I don't understand. I said, now completely confused, given that what he had said 100 meters earlier. The optimists, they were the ones who said we are going to be out by Christmas. And Christmas would come and Christmas would go. Then they said we are going to be out by Easter. And Easter would come and Easter would go. Then Thanksgiving, and then it would be Christmas, and they died of a broken heart. Another long pause and more walking. Then he turned to me and said, this is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. In other words, don't hide your head in the sand. Don't hide your head away from what is going on. Confront the brutal facts, but have faith that at the end of the day, you will make it through. Why are you going through a season of discouragement? Don't hide yourself from the facts. Don't hide yourself from the nature of the season. You might need to seek counsel. You might need to seek help. You might need to find somebody to talk to. You might need to find someone to pray with you. You might need to find somebody to make you might need to make your own adjustments. You might need to make adjustments to your finances. You might need to make adjustments to where you're staying. But never lose sight of faith that you will make it through in the end. And that is what Jim Collins calls the Stockdale paradox. Sometimes the optimistic mentality that, by tomorrow things will change. By the day after tomorrow things will change. Sometimes we might be here a while. You know, we might be going through this situation a while. I remember the church for a while, especially when we talk about the end time, saying, when the Antichrist appears, we will not be here. We'll have disappeared. We'll have been raptured with him. I think I have a different view. I think we might be here a while. And if we're going to be here a while, then we need to be mentally prepared for some of the situations that we're going to face during those seasons. So what am I saying? I'm saying you will make it. I'm saying you will come out. I'm saying that you will navigate the season. But I'm also saying don't hide your head in the sand. Don't imagine the problem does not exist. If you need to adjust your finances, adjust your finances. If you need to seek counsel, seek counsel. If you need to make changes, make the changes that you need. If you need somebody to walk alongside you to hold you accountable for whatever issues that you need to be held accountable for, find that person. Face the brutal facts. Accept the reality of your situation. Like Hezekiah. Hezekiah told God that the king of Assyria, what he said is true. These kings that he said he has overcome, he has dealt with, he's overcome them, he's dealt with them. But yet, their gods were not like our God. The gods that they serve were idols. They are made of wood and hay and stone. So some of those realities are true. The business has not taken off the ground. My health is suffering. My relationships are suffering. Some of those realities are true. We face them as they are. But we also have faith that God is able to bring us through to the very end. You know, one of the things we used to say about faith a long time ago was that faith does not hide from the mountain. Faith does not imagine that the mountain does not exist. When Jesus was speaking to his disciples about faith in the book of Mark chapter 11, verse 22 to verse 24, he says, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, you shall speak to the problem. So you're not imagining that the problem does not exist. You're not imagining that there's a non-existent problem. There is a mountain. There is a challenge. There is a problem. But you're also speaking to a problem. You have the faith that you're well able to overcome that problem, whatever that problem looks like. So today as we pray, my prayer is not that you'd hide in the sand, but that you would be resolute, that you'll be able to navigate the season, that you'll have the strength to navigate the season, that you'll have the capacity to make it through to the very end. Not from an optimistic perspective that this will change tomorrow, but from that persuasion on your inside that my God, the God whom I serve, will turn it around for me. And Father, this morning, this afternoon, this evening, thank you. Thank you for faith in our hearts. Thank you for faith that does not imagine that the problem exists, but faith that confronts the problem and yet is resolute enough to understand and to know that we will overcome. Faith that realizes sometimes God may take away the problem, but sometimes God may take us through the problem. But we will be resolute. We will be resilient. We will be strong on our inside. Our eyes are on you and on your capacity to deliver us and to bring us to that wealthy place that we've been prophesying about. We bless you. We honor you.